Hey YouTube, it's me, Brandon Colonel again. The next video that I've got is another update on a knife. This one is the ZT-0561. I did an unboxing review of the ZT about a week ago, and now I'm going to be giving you more my opinion of it after use. Now, just initial, well, not, I guess I can't say initial anymore, but my opinions of it right now are incredibly good. I really like this knife. I think one of the things that I mentioned that I didn't like about it beforehand was when you're trying to use a thumb stud, then the detent just locks up on you, and then you can't even use a flipper until you open it two-handed. Well, turns out what I was doing is I was pressing on the frame lock, and I was just pressing that detent in there, making it impossible to use it, and then that detent was stuck, so I couldn't use the the flipper anymore. Whereas now when I know what to do, I'm just lightly keeping my finger over here for support, and it just flies open. So it's actually pretty easy to use the thumb studs once you get to realize how to use it. Because I'm kind of new to frame locks. One of the only frame locks I own is this knife, which honestly, it's the exact same knife. They're both Hinders. They both feature the lock bar stabilizer. They are incredibly similar knives. Basically, the only differences lie in size, the fact that this is speed safe, and the lanyard holes. Let me get that in frame. The lanyard holes are basically the only other difference. Both of them are even deep carry pocket clips. The only difference on this one is it's not quite as high. Whereas this one, when you've got this all the way in your pocket, you're not seeing anything more. Now, this is carbidized, which I really do appreciate, and I really do like the fact that this is carbidized. But for whatever reason, it felt like the carbidization was starting to come off on the knife, which just a little bit of graphite on the lock face, and I was able to fix that because it started to feel really sticky. And so far, the graphite's actually held tremendously. So maybe it just took off some gunk. I don't know. Maybe just some got stuck on the lock face and made it feel sticky. But right now it's really smooth to operate. And as I already showed you before, that is incredibly smooth. It's just like butter going open. And it is phenomenally sharp. Let me get a fresh space going real quick so I can show you easier. Because right now it's still showing you from the wreckage of what's left of this piece of paper after the Spyderco Tenacious review, which I just did that earlier today. So here's a semi-fresh piece now. This is just razor sharp. I have done a little bit of work to the edge just to make it sharper, but it has nothing to do with the fact that it ever got dull, because this thing, it never once got dull. I just wanted to see if I could make it any sharper than it came, because I always like messing with my knives. I just like seeing if I can get them any sharper, which the Kershaw Skyline, actually, even as smooth as this thing is, it's a little sluggish when you first get it. So I actually just took it apart to see if I could do any better, and I just simply lubricated some of the joints, and now it flies out like a rocket, and I'm putting minimal effort behind that flipper, and it's coming out almost as if it's spring assist. And if I put any effort into it at all, then it comes out with just simply more authority. That's about the only difference. it wouldn't make a bigger sound if this thing was speed safe. But honestly, that would add more weight, which would make some people. It would just take some people off because they like this because of how light it is. I know that that Nut and Fancy, the reason why he actually likes this knife is because it's razor sharp and because it's so light. But yeah, even this knife, I fooled around with it, razor sharp right out of the box, and even then I still sharpened it and got it even sharper than it came to me. But back to the original knife that I'm on, the ZT-0561. Honestly, I like the weight on this. It's really well balanced, so it doesn't just feel like a big heavy chunk of metal in your hands, which essentially is what this is. It's just a big heavy chunk of metal in your hands. That's exactly what it is, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels very ergonomic and very balanced. Honestly, these two feel about the same weight in the hands, which honestly I don't think they're too far off. I never really did look up the specs on them. I really need to start doing that. But the specs actually tell you that this is a heavier knife than this. But because of how balanced this one is, they actually feel about the same. And honestly, the ZT feels just a little bit heavier, probably because all the force is centered like right directly in your hand, whereas the ZT, it spreads it out over a pretty good amount of distance. So this actually feels fairly light. This feels like a brick. Both of them are ZTs, but honestly, this one just feels like a brick in your hands, and this is supposedly the lighter one. But yeah, this is phenomenal. I absolutely love this knife. Just razor sharp. It uses the thumb studs as the blade stops. It's Elmax powdered steel, about 3 3/4 inches long for the blade. I think it's 9 3/4 inches overall. Yeah, so let me give you a bit of a size comparison between my two ZTs. So that's the 0561 on top and the 0350 on bottom. And so that's just giving you an idea of how massive this blade is. So for those of you that are looking for a knife basically exactly like this but smaller, you might want to look in the 566. It is spring assisted, but you can actually take out the torsion bar and just basically de-assist it, and to the point where it's actually simply running on the washer system. It's got phosphor bronze washers, and it's incredibly smooth. It's not going to be anywhere near as smooth as this. I'll just get that right out of the way now. It's not going to be anywhere near as smooth as this, but it is going to be insanely smooth, especially the opening. Yeah. Apparently I gripped the frame too hard, but the opening will be insanely smooth, and they especially have the detent set up so that way if you ever decide to de-assist your knife, then you could rely on the detent alone to open up the knife. Which at one point I actually decided to de-assist this just to see what it was like and see if it was as smooth as people say it is. Honestly, it actually came out faster when I de-assisted it, but the thing that I didn't like was that it wasn't 100%. It wouldn't always open up completely every single time. That's one thing that I wasn't too keen on, which that's easy to get by. Which this has started making into more and more videos every time with each one that I do. But this knife, I'm actually surprised at how well I like it, because it is not spring assisted, and it does not open every single time. You can get it to have a failed deployment. but if you put enough force behind it, it's going to go open every single time. Now there's times with this that I'll be wearing gloves, and if I'm carrying this as my EDC, I want it to open every single time, especially when I'm using this as my tactical knife. Because now that I'm starting to get higher end EDCs like the Kershaw Skyline, I'm actually starting to carry more than one primary blade. This one, like I would start carrying this as my primary tactical. So this has been retired from EDC use for the most part. I may still use it every now and again for EDC tasks, but for the most part, this is officially retired as my main EDC knife, and it'll fall more to EDC friendly knives, because I'm starting to see how this will actually go. Like even this will actually, for me, be more of a combination of an EDC and a tactical. If I'm carrying this, I don't think it'll have much of a need for the other EDC or tactical blades. I may carry them just because, but because this is such a phenomenal blade, I don't think it'll need much more than this. But yeah, if I'm carrying something like this, or maybe my Spyderco Tenacious, then I think it'll be carrying something like this as my main tactical, and then I'll be carrying something like the Skyline or my Kershaw Volt 2. I might be carrying something like this in my back pocket as my EDC blade. Now, for some people, that's a little bit backwards. They'll prefer to carry their tactical in their back pocket, and then carry their EDC in their front right pocket, because your EDC is what you're going to be grabbing all day. Well, to me, if you ever get in a tactical situation, speed is one of the fastest things that you can ever do. You want a lot of speed. So, if I'm carrying this in my, say I'm carrying this as my main tactical, and then say I've got my other hinder, the Kershaw Cryo, as my EDC. Now, what's going to be easiest for me to grab in case of a tactical situation? The Cryo. If this is in my front right pocket and this is in my back pocket, which is going to be easier to grab? Is it going to be... No, I'll just show you what I mean. If I've got my Kershaw Cryo right here, and then I've got the ZT in my back pocket, in case a tactical situation comes up, and then this is the easiest knife for me to get. So, but if a tactical situation comes up, this is the easiest knife. I might just simply end up going for this one, because this is easier to get to. Whereas the ZT, I've got to reach all the way back here, get it out, and then flick it open. And then just pray to God that I've got it in enough time. It's an awkward situation to reach all the way back here. Plus, the main times when I probably have to use it is during a situation where I'm walking the streets at night. Now, typically, whenever I'm out walking the streets at night, I'm usually coming back from sparring practice from MMA, and at which point I'm tired. I am in no shape to fight because I've literally been fighting for the past 2 hours. So there's absolutely no reason, well, not reason, but there's no way my arm would be able to reach all the way back into my back pocket and get out this knife comfortably. Whereas if the knife is in my front pocket, which I'll show you again with the ZT. If the ZT is in my front pocket This is my main tactical. And then I've got the Kershaw Cryo. I'll have that in my back pocket. This will be where I keep my EDC at. This is easier to get out, and therefore use my primary tactical weapon. Whereas, whenever I need to just simply go and cut a box, I can fumble with it for a little bit and get it open. Whereas, when your life depends on it, you're looking for something quick and fast. You're not looking for something that's going to take you a couple of seconds to get it deployed. So, it may be a little bit backwards from what people do. There's people that I know that are really criticizing me for it because of how I'm deciding to carry it. Because they're like, that's just stupid. Why do you want the knife that you're going to be going for all freaking day to be the knife that's nowhere near your hand? It's going to be easiest to put it up front. This is the knife that I want to go for when I'm fighting somebody. If I'm carrying this thing for EDC, then yeah, I'm not exactly going to put it in my back pocket, because this is also going to be a tactical knife for me as well. Unless I know that I'm just going to be using and abusing this thing, at which point I might not be carrying this one unless it's the only one that I know that will handle the abuse. At which point I might as well carry this knife, but I might carry it with a left-handed grip, so that I might convert the tip to left-handed, so that way I can bring this knife out with my left hand. So that way it's still easily accessible, which I'm not exactly completely ambidextrous, but in a tactical situation, if this thing is dull, it's going to be better to pull this thing out with my left hand than it is if I pull a dull knife out and expect this to defend my life. I can still pull this thing out quickly and give the guy pause while I draw this knife as my secondary, and then quickly transfer the knife over, because this is going to be my main slashing knife. And then I can use this thing in a reverse grip and go for penetration. So that's just a little bit about the way that I'm starting to carry knives now. But this knife could easily fit tactical. It could easily fit EDC. Basically any knife that you have for a designated area, this could easily fit that. I mean, I can just about guarantee you this will do food prep if you want it to. It's a little thick, but I can guarantee you it'll cut whatever you need it to cut, and it'll cut it flawlessly. It holds a razor edge that barely ever gets dull no matter what you're doing to it, and it's actually very comfortable. My one thing about it is that it is very large, so in order to take full advantage of just how comfortable it is, you kind of need to wear gloves to fill it out just a little bit. If you have really big hands, there's this one guy that lives in the same hall as I do, and he's got really big, beefy hands, and it fit his hands like a glove. This is incredibly comfortable, at least for me it is. But if I want to take full advantage of the comfort, I kind of need bigger hands, so therefore I put on gloves, which I cannot seem to find where I put my gloves at the moment, but so I can show you. But it is very comfortable without gloves, but it's more comfortable with them. I'll just put it that way. But very smooth to open, very smooth to close. The jimping is still incredibly sharp, which I made a complaint about last time. But now that I've gotten better at flipping it, I barely come into contact with the jimping if I do at all. So it is insanely comfortable, and I've actually come to like the jimping on it now, especially now that my thumb has got a very decent sized callus on it. Because when I first got it, that jimping is incredibly sharp. So basically, either you form a callus or you put this knife down. Plain and simple. Either you form a callus or you put it down. So I flipped it up for 2 days straight, ignoring the fact of how much my thumb hurt, and within 3 days I had a really strong callus. Now I can do this all freaking day without a single problem, and my thumb will not hurt the next day. Because before, I would just barely tap my thumb and there would be searing pain. But hey, if you're trying to get used to a knife, sometimes that's what you got to do. Especially with a knife like this, if you're trying to get used to it, so that way you can use it without hurting yourself. But yeah, I absolutely love this knife. I completely adore it. The jimping is actually not as effective as I originally thought before I received my knife. In fact, the Kershaw Skyline has even better jimping, and it's just the standard jimping that you would find on jimping. It's basically the standard grip that you would find on any G10 knife. The grip on this, despite the fact that it's 3D machined, it is actually it doesn't have as good of a grip as you would think. It's I wouldn't even call it a medium aggressive. It's fairly light as far as the grip. Most of your grip comes from the jimping and these deep finger choils. Now, some things that I know that people will complain about as far as the fit and finish of the knife is just different things that I've noticed. Like, for instance, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but the G10 does not completely match up right here. If you can see, there's almost like a bit of a horn sticking out where the G10 was not completely matched up. As well as right there. You can here, let me get another knife just to point it out. You can kind of see, like, it right here. This is the G10, and this right here is the steel liner. Well, I don't know if it's titanium or steel, but that does not match up with the jimping up here. I'm getting my words all screwed up. The G10. It doesn't match up with the G10, so that I know a lot of people are going to be complaining about. So, but it's a production. It's not perfect. It may have even just simply been to take off maybe a couple of half ounces. But it doesn't detract from how comfortable the knife is. I mean, your finger doesn't ever come in contact with this. The fact that the G10 right here doesn't completely match up with the liner, hey, it's not exactly that big of a deal. It's not like it's taking away from the comfort of the knife. So, but that's things I can guarantee you other people are going to be nitpicking about. But otherwise, I personally really just adore this knife. It is absolutely phenomenal. And one day, I don't care how much money I have to spend, one day I will own a true Hinderer. And whether it be the XM18 or the XM24, I don't care. One day I will own a Hinderer knife. And it will be one of those two. Because I want to be able to compare these two one day. But just needless to say, one day I will own one. They will be mine. But yeah, until then, this is going to have to tide me over. And so far, I can say it's doing a phenomenal job. As usual, YouTube, stay safe.